love life? Do you love life? Do you really love life? Do you love life?
Welcome to the We Love Life podcast. Together we'll explore how the church is being united and mobilized to create a culture of love and life. Through inspiring conversations with pastors, ministry leaders, and business owners, we'll dive into stories of transformation, faith in action, and the incredible impact that happens when the church comes together to shine the light in the darkest places in our world. Join us as we learn how God is moving through His people to create a culture of love and life that will bring an end to abortion and the orphan crisis. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the We Love Life podcast. Appreciate all you guys joining us, and we'd appreciate if you guys would like, subscribe, and share this podcast episode. If you're watching or you're listening on YouTube or some other podcast service, we want other people to see this content and listen to this content. We think it will be a blessing to the body of Christ. And I think you guys are going to be super blessed to meet our guest today, and we'll introduce her in just a minute. But I'm joined today by Justin Reeder. Say, hey, Justin.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to be here.
Yeah, man. So Justin Reeder, if you guys don't know, is our founder and president with Love Life. God gave him ultimately what became Love Life as just a download from heaven, a strategy from heaven to really unite and mobilize the church. And Justin's always said with our team, this is not about Love Life. This is not about us building our kingdom. This is about God and Him building His kingdom. And we're just a vessel that God uses to unite and mobilize the church, which we believe is the most powerful entity on the face of the planet, the church. And so it's pretty amazing what the Lord has done and is doing through this ministry. Justin, man, how are things going with you and your family right now? We just got through Christmas season, the new year. How are things going with you guys on the farm?
Amazing, man. Amazing. We love this time of year, as everybody does. It's an incredible time to spend time with family and friends and celebrate the birth of Christ and look to the new year and look back at the previous year. So we had a chance to do all that. My son also got to kill his first deer, the last day of deer season, which was pretty cool. Jack, he's 11 years old. He was very, very excited to do that. And but yeah, family's doing great, man. Very grateful. Our family's healthy. But we had an amazing time for Christmas and New Year's, and excited for this podcast. We got Lisa Washington, one of my favorite people on this podcast today. And as we do on all these podcasts, we really just highlight believers, Christians that are following the Lord, that have said yes to the call of God on their life. And you're going to get to hear an amazing story from Lisa today.
Yeah, man. I'm excited about this. So yeah, let's introduce Lisa. Lisa Washington is our city director for Love Life NYC. And Lisa, how long have you been in that seat? Since 2019, right? We were just talking before we started recording.
Yes. God willing, June 1st, it'll be 6 years. Hard to believe, Justin, how quickly
Incredible.
Time has gone.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing.
I'd love to talk a little bit about how we even started New York City before we pass it to Lisa. It was 2018, Lisa just said, where in New York City, they passed a law legalizing abortion up till birth. I believe it was January of 2018. Some of you guys might remember this. It was in the news. It was very public. Not only did they pass this law, but they also celebrated the passing of the law. They lit up One World Trade Center in pink and some other buildings in pink. And I remember the video very, very clearly as they were all standing and applauding and celebrating as they signed this bill into law. It was something that I know grieved the hearts of thousands or millions of believers across the nation and around the world. I remember so many pastors reaching out to us saying, hey, have you seen this? Do you see what New York City's doing? Have you seen what's happening in our nation? I mean, people were grieved and broken, as we should be. When this took place. Again, it wasn't something, it was like they wanted to make it public. They wanted to celebrate it. Not only did they just want to pass it, they wanted to celebrate it. And many people were broken over this as they saw it take place. I know our team was. And so we began to pray, just like, Lord, what could we do to help in New York City? And so we connected with some pastors and some Christians in New York City, and we took a trip up there, kind of an exploratory trip up there. We had some people that had reached out to us to tell us to come up to see them. We did that. We had some meetings. We just were trying to understand what was taking place already in New York City and how do we partner up with it. And we found that there were some faithful churches and faithful pastors that were there on the ground, and thousands of faithful Christians in New York City. But a lot of people just didn't know what to do or how to respond, to the passing of this wicked bill that New York City had just passed. And we met with some pregnancy care centers and pastors, and one of the pastors was Lisa's pastor at the time at Times Square Church. And that's really how Lisa and I got to meet. And we had some pastor meetings, and it was very clear that the pastors, the leaders of the city, wanted to launch Love Life in that city. So we grouped up with a core group of pastors to help do that. We launched in September of 2018. This was our fourth city of launching. We began in Charlotte in 2016. Then we launched Greensboro and Raleigh in 2018. And then the Lord led us to launch New York City in 2018. And Lisa, it was very clear from the beginning after we met her that she was the one that God has anointed and called for this position, as you're going to find out here in just a minute. Just hearing her story, hearing her voice and her passion for this, God has his hand upon her life. And we've gotten to see amazing things in New York City, haven't we, Lisa?
Yes, we have.
It's really been an incredible thing to witness. And I had the privilege of getting to be up there with Lisa as we started it and kicked it off in New York City. And those will be forever some of my probably fondest memories of Love Life. I get emotional thinking about it because I just think about the people, the faithful people, the pastors, the Christians, as we were just talking about before we started the podcast, John Robinson being one of them.
Yes.
Who right now is very ill, and ask you guys to pray for him if you think of it. But just incredible people that were willing to take a righteous stand in a very wicked time in that city. And we got to see miracles take place. One, I'll just share with you really quick. I remember week 40, I think it might have been 2019. We had hundreds of Christians down there in front of the largest abortion center in Lower Manhattan on Bleecker and Mott Street at formerly the Margaret Sanger Center, the Planned Parenthood building there. It's, what is it, Lisa, four stories tall, 6 stories tall?
7 stories.
7 stories tall, 7-story tall building right there in Lower Manhattan. Hundreds of Christians out there praying. And in the middle of that moment, right when we came out in front of the abortion clinic to pray, a mom was walking up, and she was about to walk into the building, into the Planned Parenthood. And she saw all these Christians over there praying and just singing worship songs to the Lord. And it was literally like the light just drew her in. And she literally crossed the street where the Planned Parenthood was located, came across the street to where our prayer walk was, came right into our crowd. Lisa was right there to greet her. And she literally just joined the prayer walk. And here was a mom that was coming to have an abortion that literally now joins the prayer walk because
Wow.
the church is there. Hundreds of Christians out there in front of the largest abortion center in New York City. And this mom walks back with us all the way to a church that we start our prayer walks at this Ukrainian church in New York City. And now this mom is sitting on the front row of this church building and experiencing the love of God, of all the Christians that are caring for her. We found out that I think she lived in Brooklyn, if I remember correctly. And we said, hey, we need some families that are going to walk with this mom. Are there some families here that are from Brooklyn? And immediately 2 families came forward and said, we will walk with this mom. We will mentor her. We will care for her. Just an incredible moment. You know, we talk all the time about we want to see families stop running to the abortion clinic for the answer and begin running to the local church. And we literally got to experience it in that moment at that week 40 where this mom, who was going to be sitting inside of Planned Parenthood, is now sitting inside of a local church and already being cared for and loved on by Christians.
That's
I'll
amazing.
never forget that moment. But
Yes.
Lisa, I know you got many stories. You have incredible testimonies you could share. But tell us a little bit about kind of how you started with Love Life and a little bit, you just see like your story, your background. Let people know, who is Lisa Washington?
Sure. Well, again, I want to thank you so much, Justin and Daniel, for this opportunity. I was just on a call with Krista Patarath. She's our new director in Queens, and we were just talking about how privileged we are and honored we are to be a part of this ministry with such godly leaders. I say that truly from the bottom of my heart. It has been an opportunity of a lifetime to be a part of a ministry like this, an issue that is so dear to the heart of our Father, and to literally be a part of the redemption of seeing babies who are appointed for slaughter have their lives be saved, and then also more than that, see moms and dads and workers come out of the industry. People are coming to faith in Jesus. It's an absolute privilege. A little bit about me. I am born and raised in New York City. A really rare thing these days. Me and my husband, we
You're
are
a true
both
New
native New
Yorker.
Yorkers,
Yes.
and we were both born and raised in Manhattan to make it doubly unusual. And I have a personal story with abortion, which I'll get to in a little bit. My life has been deeply, deeply impacted by this issue on both sides. I am the youngest of 9 children, born and raised in a difficult, very, very difficult marriage, and I was really saved from abortion. My mom certainly loved all of her children, but with the complications of her marriage, she certainly did not intend to have a lot of children. She did a lot of practical things to not have children, and she found herself just in God's providence with more and more children. Very similar, actually, Justin and Daniel, to Margaret Sanger's mom. I was recently kind of rethinking some of Margaret Sanger's stories. She's one of, I think, of 11 children. I'm one of 9, the youngest of 9. And she really felt like her mom having so many children set her mother back. And it's part of what the devil used to fuel her
Yep.
to start this abortion movement. Thankfully, nothing was nearly as drastic with my mom. However, I am considered a woman that was unwanted. That was really my beginning. And that, along with just being an indirect casualty of some of the complications of my parents' marriage, it caused me to be an extremely insecure child and a very, very insecure teenage girl. And like a lot of teenage girls, constantly looking for love in the wrong places because we don't know the love of Jesus. That was very much my story. I was not raised in a Christian household. However, my parents, like a lot of African Americans, were raised with a basic knowledge of God. And it really does help in laying a foundation. And that was very much my case. And so I definitely knew about God. I believed in God. I went to Sunday school for a year. But again, I wasn't raised in a born again family. And I started looking for love in all the wrong places. And I was I was like 18 years old. I was already on my 3rd casual sexual relationship. And that 3rd one ended up in a pregnancy that was not wanted. I was still in high school. I was looking to graduate. I had a lot of plans about college. My family had a lot of plans and ambitions for me. And to be honest with you, Justin and Daniel, I know that I was not mature enough to parent, but what I certainly wish is that I had enough maturity and enough morality to let that baby live and give that baby to a family that desperately wants one. Right now in the United States, there's at least 2 million couples on a waiting list to adopt a brand new baby. I was totally healthy. I could have done that, but in my own brokenness, my own selfishness, I sadly chose abortion. And not only did I choose abortion, I ended up having a devastating 2-day abortion when I was in my 2nd trimester. To be precise, I was 4.5 months pregnant because I was really wrestling with what to do. And I knew enough about God that it was clear from my memory of a 9-year-old girl in Sunday school that one of the commandments is thou shalt not kill. I clearly knew that. Wow. Plus, I have the testimony of my own life that I'm here, even though my mom didn't necessarily want me to be here. God willed me into existence, just like I read now in the Bible, particularly in David's story. He says that so clearly in Psalm 22. God saw him, protected him in the womb, brought him safely into the world, and was his God. And that's very much my story. And so I wrestled and wrestled. And of course, the more I wrestled and prolonged it, of course, my pregnancy continued on. And then I finally had to make a decision. Sadly, also, what drove me to have to make that hard decision was that I was physically sick from this relationship that I had been in. And so I was just in sin upon sin, and I had to go get myself treated. And while I was being treated, the nurse basically told me that I was at the cutoff point to make a decision about the pregnancy. And so I just felt like I needed to do it. I had already told the young man that I was pregnant by that I would do it. And we made a very cold, calculated decision. I would have the abortion. We would part ways. We would both basically get a fresh start in life. And I felt like I needed to honor my word. And so I went and I started this abortion procedure. But Justin and Daniel, what I definitely did not know was the seriousness. I had no idea that I was up for a 2-day procedure because I was so far. I had no idea of the aftermath, especially. I had no idea of the aftermath, the consequences that I was going to have to bear. I had so many friends at that point that had abortions. I mean, many abortions, and they literally made it seem like it was not that big of a deal. And my experience was completely other. I went in, I had this abortion, and on the way to the abortion, even though I was absolutely dead in sin, I can remember as clear as my voice how God and his mercy was trying to reach me. Because a lot of the times what we fail, I think, to discuss and our desire to want to see babies be spared, of course we should, because they are the targets. They are the ones that lose their lives to not get them back. However, one thing that I was also keenly aware of was the love of God for my soul, how he was trying to stop me from having to deal with ramifications and consequences that I would have to live with for years after this tragic decision that I'd made. And I kept just driving through every single red flag on the subways, in the waiting room. And while I was being examined, I mean, God was just coming left and right, north and south, giving me signs. Literally, it played out like a movie if I had time to tell you the whole story. And I did get to the point in the first portion of my appointment. I said to the woman sitting in front of me, I'm having second thoughts. They had already told me that my child was sleeping, the eyes were closed and the eyes were awakened. And my heart was absolutely I was just shattered. I was overwhelmed. I could not believe I'd found myself in this situation. And I said to this woman sitting in front of me, I'm an 18-year-old girl. This woman was an older woman. And she, every concern that I had, she completely downplayed. Every time I brought up, well, what about this? And can you tell me the sex of my child? And what about if I change my mind? And she always had a very, very shifty counter. And I really started to realize, contrary to all of the rhetoric and the narratives, right, that abortion is all about women and empowering women, literally the name of this place, the slogan is a place for women by women. That's the irony. And it was other than. I'm telling this woman I'm having second thoughts, and all she is doing is selling me on an abortion. And I started to just feel more and more hopeless. I felt more and more helpless. And then I just resigned that I just had to do this because I'm trying to do my best to tell this woman I don't want to do it. And she's selling me and convincing me why I have to. And I was just, honestly, I was so weak. I literally felt like a shell of myself. And then I went through with the abortion, and I remember God in his mercy visited me that first night, day one of this 2-day procedure. And the voice was so real and the voice was so tender. It was the voice of like a father, more gentle and tender than my own dad, who I always had such a great relationship with. And he said to me, it's not too late. It's not too late. Don't do it. I could hear it like a plea. Wow. And the voice of God, Justin and Daniel, as real as I'm talking to you right now. And I started just telling God, oh God, but what about high school and college? And what about this relationship? And I've already said that I would do it. And I just pushed out that last plea of God. And I went the next day for part 2. And as it turned out, I ended up being the only woman in the waiting room. Can never forget it. It's like God was just, he just had me to himself one more time, right before I walked through those doors in my surgical gown. I heard it as clear as day. Even though you're in the gown, I heard him say, you can still get up and you can still get out. And where they really had me hooked, unfortunately, was because I had been prepped. And I asked the nurse, if I change my mind, how can I basically undo day one? And she told me they were the only ones that could do that for me. So I just felt trapped. I felt trapped, and I went in and I had the abortion, and it left me truly a shell of myself for at least 15 years after I had to pick up the pieces. But the beauty of God is one of my favorite verses, Romans 5, verse 20, where sin abounds, the grace of God does much more abound. And the grace of God to me was that my sister, my second oldest sister, who had been that spiritual influence in my life, she had become born again. And she started aggressively praying for me, my family, all of my siblings. And she just loved me in the midst of all of the brokenness. She invited me to church, Times Square Church. I went, had a good experience, didn't really know what to make of it. Again, kind of had my qualms about organized religion, quote unquote. But I did go back just to really honor her influence and her telling me she thought that this was something that I needed to do, I should do, very gently. And I did. And on my second visit at Times Square Church, I had a radical born again experience with God. Radical, like life-changing. I met Jesus. I met him for myself. He went from this out in the cosmos God, this basic Jesus loves the little children kind of a God, and I met the Lord, and he just started talking to me about my life, my own choices, all of the brokenness with my parents, and all of the things I dealt with their marriage, and forced me to take responsibility for my own choices, my own sinful, broken choices that got me into that whole terrible abortion. Also, at that time, I had been in an adulterous relationship. I was extremely broken as a teen and young adult woman. I'd been drinking. I was a binge drinker. I was a club girl. I mean, you name it. I'd almost been date raped a few times. I'd just gone through a lot of incredible trauma. A lot of it, again, because of my own brokenness. And God just started just speaking to me, and so lovingly. And I went to the altar, surrendered my life. I have no real memory about the sermon, anything other than I met the Lord. And I remember that he told me if I gave him my life, he would give me a new one in return. And Justin and Daniel, I hit the ground running. I mean, I went home. I had a Bible that was sitting on my dresser. My sister had given it to me as a Christmas gift. I looked at it maybe once or twice to try to read Psalm 23 in times of trouble. But I started reading the word for hours and hours on end, devouring the word, and was understanding the word. And in that incredible season, hours in the prayer closet, just before God, broken, letting him deal with all of the layers of my brokenness. He just started healing me and delivering me and restoring me line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, just like he says in his word. And I've been living for God 28 years, never to be the same.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. What an incredible testimony, Lisa. I've heard you share it before, but it never gets old. It's powerful. It's still obviously very real and fresh in you. And so you guys are getting to meet Miss Lisa right now, and you guys understand what I said earlier, why we believe God's hand is upon her for this mission, especially. I mean, it's very real. It's very personal for you, Lisa. No one can argue with that. I mean, it began when you were born, your own mom's battle with the thought of potentially aborting you, and you surviving that, and then going on to being caught up in sin and making the choice to have an abortion. And it's extremely powerful to me to hear about how God met you in those moments and was continually, speaking to you and giving you a way out. And this as ministering to many moms in front of the abortion clinic, that most moms are looking for a way out. We find out that a
Yes.
lot of them are looking for a way out, and they're
Yeah.
looking for a sign. And it's so good to hear that God is speaking to them. Like we might not always know the details. We might not always get to hear the stories like we hear with you, but we know that God is moving and He's speaking to these people, and He's using people like yourself and believers who are out there communicating the message of hope and offering the help to these people. And you literally are the sign for those moms.
Yes.
So, I mean, God has, really equipped you to carry this message, prepared you for this. And we say it all the time that people that have had this in their past, had abortions in their past, once they get healed and set free and born again, we believe they're the Navy SEALs of the movement. And that is you, Lisa.
Oh.
No doubt about it. But, you didn't become a pro-life superstar, right? Just kind of out of nowhere.
Yes.
And that's not even really how we would refer to you necessarily, but people from the outside looking in, saying, well, here she is, has this incredible story, and she's leading this pro-life ministry. But what were you doing when we met? You weren't out on the sidewalks. What were you doing?
No, Justin, I was definitely not on the sidewalks. I was in corporate. And, for years, so I got radically saved, and I was in already serving, not serving, excuse me, but working in corporate, well, serving, because yes, everywhere you go is ministry. So
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't fully understand that. But yes, I was working in corporate America, and God has just always really blessed me to have really good jobs. And so my first job, people don't hold it against me, I was at CNN.
Communist News
And-
Network.
Trying to work my way up the corporate ladder, and I was ascending pretty quickly, and then God just caused me to run into sort of a juggernaut of a boss, and that job ended. And then I moved from CNN to a book publishing company, like the third biggest in the United States, and I was doing really, really well there. And but I tell you, the more that I started living for Jesus and just loved being in God's house and being with God's people. And yes, I was grateful for my job and the salary and those kinds of things, promotions and all these wonderful things that God blessed me to experience. There was always a longing in my heart to be fully given for the things of Christ, if God gave me that opportunity to do so. And so I left the book publishing company, and then I started working for this billionaire who owns a hedge fund, and that job was amazing at the time that God started talking to me about Love Life. And Justin, one thing I don't know if you do know is that right at the time that Reproductive Health Act was being put into law, something that was customary for me was that the week leading into the Roe versus Wade anniversary is the time that I would often spend in like extra prayer, praying for the unborn, praying for women like myself involved with abortion. As it turns out, my birthday is January 23rd. So the whole week is very, very sensitive for me when I think about my own journey, when I think about how God spared me, and how He saw me through my own abortion and all those things. It's a very, very tender time for me. And I wasn't aware that the bill was even on the docket, but I remember I went to pray, and what was a bit unusual was that the burden was so fresh. Like I was weeping uncontrollably for a few days. And I was like, wow, it's like God is breaking my heart for this subject all over again. And I had been praying, God, if you ever take me out of corporate, the only things that I felt extremely passionate about were helping teens and young adults like myself, because that's when I got in trouble, helping women, specifically the area of abortion, but no doors ever opened. So I just continued to stay in corporate and served as a full-time volunteer at my church. And God was also just giving me amazing opportunities to tell my testimony and to warn teens and young adults not to go down the path that I went through. And then just to fast forward, my husband and I, we were talking maybe a few days after I had this experience. And he said so casually, Lise, I find that lately I start thinking about the unborn, and I just start weeping and weeping. And it so caught me by surprise. I'd never heard my husband really say that before. And I just got silent, and I said to him, oh my goodness, me too. I said, it's like God is stirring this burden afresh in me, and now I hear He's doing it in you. And then there was this long, sober silence between us. And in that silence, I just sensed that the next thing that God was calling me to was ministry with abortion. And I said to my husband, I don't know for sure, but I think the next thing that God's calling me to is ministry with abortion. And then 3 weeks later, I got the email from the elder of my church saying that David and Jason Benham, our dear friends, came to New York on that scouting trip on Justin's behalf. And they already knew my senior pastor, and he started feeling like, yes, they wanted to be involved. The church had already given me numerous opportunities to tell my testimony. So they put me down on that short list of possible volunteers. They called me in to the second meeting, which Justin came up for. And I got dismissed on my lunch break to go to that meeting. And Justin, on my way to the meeting, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so amazing. A ministry, pro-life ministry, it's like an answer to prayer. I can't wait to get involved. And then I thought to myself, God, I wonder if there's a job actually doing this. And I'm thinking like, well, I actually have a job that I enjoy. Maybe I'll just do this as a volunteer. But once I got to the meeting, I met you, met David, listened to your heart. I was absolutely persuaded God was calling me. And so I was like, Lord, sign me up, whatever you would have me to do. I'm grateful just to be a volunteer. And Justin started giving me the opportunities to just help with the scouting, help with the prayer. And I did that for about 3 months. And then he felt like God confirmed that God was indeed leading him to start Love Life New York. And then he offered me the opportunity. I quit my job, started Love Life 2 weeks later. And here I am 6 years later. All to the glory of God.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's good just to hear that again. I mean, I even forget some of those details, but I do remember sitting in that room with you and Pastor Carter Conlon and some of the team there at Times Square Church. And, that's where we first met. And Pastor Carter said, this is your gal right here to help lead this. And that was confirmed. And I want people to hear that story, because I think people can look at us and we don't want you to look at us as the professionals. We're not the professionals at this. We're just Christians. We're ordinary people. Lisa was in the workplace, in corporate America, there in Manhattan. I'm an entrepreneur. Daniel was in the business world. He was installing floors. We're Christians. We love Jesus. God put a burden in our heart. We saw a need that needed to be met in our city. And I want you guys to see that, because that is what we're calling all Christians, to do something, whatever God has called you to do, to take your place on the wall. Yeah. You might not be called to be a full-time city director, or maybe you are. Maybe God is calling you to help start Love Life in your city. Maybe it's volunteering as a sidewalk counselor, volunteering as a mentor, volunteering as a prayer warrior, or giving financially, or whatever the Lord is calling you to do. We just hope this inspires you to say yes to whatever God's calling you to do. Even if it's outside of Love Life, we want you to say yes to the Lord and follow his call on your life. So Lisa, thanks for sharing that. And if you would now just kind of share a little bit of like what we have seen God do in New York City, a little bit of, New York City launching and just what's happened over the years. Give us a little bit of that information.
Sure. So like you said, Justin, we launched September 29, 9/29. This kind can only come out but by prayer and fasting.
That's right.
We were 7 weeks before the end of the 40-week Journey of Hope, 2019. And we launched with, my goodness, like talk about God doing more than I could have ever thought, asked, or imagined. We had 20 churches that joined us out the gate. We had hundreds of volunteers from my old church, Times Square Church. We saw 1,400 people come out to pray in 7 weeks. 17 moms chose life. It was absolutely phenomenal, including that powerful story that Justin shared. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I really thought we were going to be in such an incredible struggle launching Love Life, a ministry like this, because New York is the abortion capital of the country. We are in an incredibly liberal city. Of course, people know this, liberal area, just strongholds of liberal, progressive thinking. But God just cemented that he was absolutely with us. And prior to us launching Love Life, Justin, I think you might remember, there was also the big rally in Times Square. 10,000 people came out for life. And so we were riding an incredible momentum. People were grieved by the law. People wanted to get involved. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And I thought that we would just ride that all the way into 2020. And then we got to March 2020 and COVID hit. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you know this, Justin and Daniel, but New York, as you do know, became ground zero of the pandemic. But the days where COVID was raging the most, where we saw the most deaths, are the exact same dates when abortion was legalized in New York, April 9th and April 10th, 1970.
Wow.
It's not a coincidence.
No.
God woke me up in the middle of the night and he told me that there was a real correlation with COVID and abortion in New York. And I'm not gonna, I know we're here to talk about some other things, but I just wanted to say that it's important for me to say it because this is such a deeply spiritual issue.
Yep.
And people really do not understand, believers don't understand the seriousness of the bloodshed, the grief in God's heart, the ramifications that we face, not just as individuals, but as a nation. Very much like we see in the Old Testament when the prophets were warning the people, do not sacrifice your children. It will bring all kinds of judgments. And one of the judgments that even the prophet Jeremiah talks about are contagions, which are like pandemics.
Yep.
And so I just feel that is important to share because it was very much the deeper spiritual issue that was at play was tied to abortion. And so the church was absolutely blindsided. Churches closed. Some churches closed for a year and a half. Major churches never to reopen for a whole year and a half. A lot of Christians walked away from the Lord. We became, as you know, one of the key cities with very stringent COVID policies about going out, assembling, eating, and all of those things then pertaining to COVID shots. We had a lot of churches step away from the ministry. We went all the way down we went from 20 to about 8 that stayed with us throughout 2020, 2021, even 2022. Then, of course, there was the riots. It was a very, very dark time. There was the high rise in crime. And the church became very, very just fearful. There was a lot of, I personally just feel people were fighting to just stay afloat. I knew a lot of people that walked away from God, like I said, to this point, never to even come back. But in that time, God's challenge to me and to my husband is that he's greater and he's stronger and he's called me and that my life is in my hands. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. I should not even be here, but God willed me to be here. And so nothing can take my life until God says so. No COVID, no anything.
Yeah.
And he challenged me to keep going out and we kept going out. And in the months where New York City was on lockdown, the 3 months, we saw 20 moms choose life.
Wow.
We had no interruption on the street because everybody was so terrified to come outdoors. We had the whole area to ourselves, me and Natalie, Ashley, Anastasia, those key girls that got used to launch the sidewalk team. And we had an amazing time watching God move. And so that's one thing that I'll never forget. 20 moms chose life in those 3 months of that terrible, terrible time of the pandemic. And since then, the city has not still quite been the same. There's just a need to really encourage people to get back to the things of God. I feel like people are it took such a toll on believers here in so many different ways. Again, people are still in this kind of like survival mode, Justin and Daniel, but God always has a remnant. And we went all the way down to the 8. Now we're back to about 15 churches that are with us. And we have some churches that stayed with us in that whole time, key partnering churches. I've made some amazing friends with some wonderful pastors. And we're watching God begin to slowly build us back up. And one thing that Brian said to me, Pastor Brian Ottinger said to me recently on one of our calls is that we might not ever get back to the hundreds and hundreds that come back to the prayer walks again, but God always has a remnant. And he's calling the remnant to go deeper. And that's my prayer heading into 2025, that those of us who know that we are called, we still have the burden, we want to go deeper, we want deeper roots, and we know that God can save whether by many or by few. We know that he wants the many,
Amen.
But until he brings more of the remnant, we are determined to stand our ground, to man our post, We know that it brings God great delight to save babies and to save souls in the abortion capital of the country. And we're watching him do that. And so, to God's glory, even with all that we've seen with the pandemic, we're now up to 241 moms that have chosen life, and we give God glory. We have 20 houses of refuge churches that are partnering with us. We thank God for that.
Yeah.
We've launched Love Life Queens, and they're off to a great start. We have 6 volunteers. We have 3 more that are in the queue to be onboarded. We've seen 3 moms there choose life, 2 professions of faith. Out on Long Island, we have a team led by Cindy Fiore. They've seen 15 moms choose life. They've hosted about 10 to 12 baby showers, or funded 10 to 12 baby showers. And so God has been on the move. Yeah, he's on the move.
Yeah.
He's on the move.
Yeah.
I'm believing for him to bring fresh wind, fresh fire on New York just before, one more time, Lord, one more time,
Yeah.
one more time. We know he's not done with New York. I know that it would give God great delight, great delight to do the miraculous in New York City.
Amen.
That he would be mightily glorified. And so
Yeah.
I'm full of faith. You know, I've had my seasons of being very deeply discouraged, you know, fighting through all that I see, all of the, brothers and sisters kind of falling away. But no, like David, God said, no, I know how to encourage myself in the Lord. And God is Alpha, he's Omega. It starts with him, it ends with him. And he is by no means finished with New York. And so we're believing him for greater things.
Amen.
2025.
Amen. I believe that with you, Lisa, and no doubt about it. God has called you. He's anointed you for this. And I believe with all my heart, God has called Love Life to be there. I think, again, back when we started, we started in Charlotte. That was our Jerusalem. We went to Greensboro, Raleigh. That was our Judea and our Samaria. And when he called us to New York City, we really believe that was kind of to the ends of the earth, being the most influential city in America and probably even the world. And the lives that have been touched and the spiritual ramifications of kind of planting that flag in that city and being present there at the largest abortion center in New York City. God has used you in incredible ways. I think about so many people. I can't list them all off, but, as you mentioned earlier about Natalie and Sarah, some of those key sidewalk counselors from the beginning that really helped launch Love Life missionaries around the nation. I think about Pastor Mike and Pastor Nick and Pastor Jason, Pastor Reggie, some of these core guys that have been there from the beginning that were just
Pastor Kevin.
Pastor
Baby.
Kevin,
Gotta give him a shout out.
absolutely.
He's our backbone.
Yeah, don't let me forget Pastor Kevin played a vital role, and so many more. I get myself in trouble when I start naming names, but just incredible people, like you said, the remnant that are just faithful. They love the Lord. They're going to go against the tide of the culture.
Yes.
And they're going to raise a righteous standard in that city. You guys have been such an encouragement to me, and I know the whole Love Life family and churches around the nation as they have watched you guys take a bold stand in New York City, which is one of the most pro-abortion places in the world. And I think about another story, Pasquale Canali.
Yes.
I love saying his name. That's a real name. Pasquale Canali. Just a precious man, an Italian man. He owned an Italian deli in the Bronx, and the name of his business was called the Hero Factory. And he made Italian subs, and he had the best subs, man. I wish he still had that place. He's since retired and closed the business, but they had the best subs there in the Bronx. And in the most pro-abortion borough out of all 5 boroughs in New York City, the most pro-abortion borough being the Bronx, Pasquale Canali decided that he is going to close his business every single Saturday so that he and his family could be out at the prayer walks on Saturday mornings. And he was there, man. He and all of his family, has a very large family, would bring all the family out to the prayer walks every Saturday to be out there. Not only did he do that, not only did he close his business so that he could be present at the prayer walks, but he had a giant mural painted on the front of his building. And we have to show a picture of this, Daniel, in the video, but it's a picture of a child in the womb. And if I remember correctly, it says something like, "We will be closed on Saturdays because we were out praying to protect the unborn children in our city." And he wanted everybody to know why he was closed on Saturday. He took a bold public stand in the most pro-abortion borough in New York City. Love that. I mean, that has inspired me, and I know it has inspired Christians, that story around the nation. Yeah, Daniel, I could keep talking, man. I'm sorry. Kick it back to you. I know you got a question probably.
Well, I'm just soaking it all in, man. I actually didn't. I knew a little bit of your story, Lisa, and I knew about the past abortions, but I didn't know all the details, and really just how God ultimately used all of that to call you into this ministry. I didn't know all that, so it's a lot of this stuff is new to me and super encouraging. If I'm not mistaken, Lisa, didn't the abortion clinic that you had your abortion, didn't it shut down?
No, but that's where we are right now. That's
Okay.
the place where I had my abortion is in Queens. Daniel, it's the biggest private-owned abortion center in the city. I think at this point, because the one that you're thinking of, Bronx Abortion, closed. We had a witness there for close to a year. We had a sidewalk team out there, and we had some moms that chose life. Bronx Abortion closed in 2022 after 52 years.
Yeah.
Glory to God.
Praise God.
Amen.
200,000 abortions, Justin and Daniel. And so that place was an absolute slaughterhouse, but it closed on New Year's Day. And we got a chance to rejoice with some of our brothers and sisters who had been long standing out there in prayer and intercession. We just came in and joined in on that work, and we all get to rejoice in what only God can do. And so in addition to Bronx Abortion, though, I do also want to tell you that Planned Parenthood Staten Island is closed. Planned Parenthood Glen Clove and Long Island is closed.
Come on.
Planned Parenthood is planning to close 3 more locations in New York this year, interestingly enough, because of financial and political issues. How interesting is that? But God is on the move. He is shutting down these abortion centers. And I know that he's used us. He's allowed us to partner with him. Prayer and intercession gives us that opportunity to partner with God. It's incredible in his humility. He doesn't need us, but he graciously invites us to be a part of what only he could do, breaking down strongholds, the miraculous, to the glory of his name. And we are literally seeing it in the abortion capital of the entire world.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, the fact that Bronx Abortion closed down, we actually, Brian Ottinger just did an interview with Ezra down in South Florida, that abortion center down there. And many of you guys, if you follow us on social media, you know he's actually doing Bible studies in that abortion clinic because we have an office in there now, and moms are coming to the abortion clinic thinking they're coming for abortions, thinking it's still open, and encountering Ezra and his wife and the team there and choosing life. They've had 4 women choose life in the past 2 weeks coming in. So it gives you faith to see what God can do, not just in New York or South Florida, but across the nation. You talked about prayer, and just so you guys that are watching and listening know, on the Love Life team, we view Lisa as like the prayer warrior. Like you let this girl loose to pray, and she prays heaven down.
Oh,
and it's powerful and it's encouraging. And God's really opened up. I mean, you are a prayer warrior. When we let you pray on the national call together, we do a national call with all of our leaders. It's super encouraging. And we have a prayer meeting that we do at 12 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday, and oftentimes you're involved in that. But God has opened up some other opportunities for you, one coming up here in Washington, D.C. Share a little bit about that, if you would.
Yes. Well, to my pleasant surprise, I got a phone call last week to come and to pray at the presidential inaugural prayer meeting on the 19th. Talk about a door that only God can open. I'm so honored, and I've been asked to represent the segment of prayer for abortion, praying for the preborn, praying specifically for President Trump, that God would give him a burden for the preborn once again, and that he would understand the seriousness of the call that God has put on his life. He's allowed him to be president of these United States once again, and we are to institute righteous laws that honor God, and the preborn are one of the dearest people groups to the Lord's heart, and we are called to do everything to protect them and to defend them. That first happens, of course, spiritually, but then it, of course, is to be played out through laws and policies. And so I am just so honored, and I'm just asking God to just use me. I'm seeking Him to have a prayer that is God glorifying and targeted. And I'm not there to impress anybody. I'm there to pray to an audience of one. I have the faith to know that if God has called me and allowed me to have this moment, He wants to answer this prayer that He's putting on my heart to pray for our president. And the word tells us that we are to make prayers and intercessions for all who are in authority over us, starting with kings. And of course, that translates to presidents. And so I am so grateful. And I do covet the prayers because I want to take this assignment 100% seriously. I feel like I'm trying to already, but I really want to accomplish what the Lord wants me to accomplish, because I think there's a deeper ripple effect that God has in store beyond, of course, me just having the opportunity. And Justin, yesterday on our national call, I said that I had an aha moment the week prior when you shared about us praying about heading into Washington, D.C. I can't help but to think this is my third opportunity now that God has given me to pray in front of national leaders, our senators, our congressmen, our congresswomen, and some very influential Christian leaders. And I've had a chance to just in 2 minutes, just share a little of my testimony. But beyond my testimony, they know that I serve in Love Life. And now I literally get to show pictures of babies and moms when I go on Sunday to the presidential prayer meeting. They asked me to show women with their babies who have been saved and spared from abortion. And so God is giving us national exposure, and we haven't sought it. We're not striving. We are praying for God to do what God wants to do.
Yeah.
And He started this ministry, and He has plans beyond anything that any of us really fully know. We're just continuing to seek Him as we go. But God has some wonderful things in store. And I think that me going to this prayer meeting is maybe the next step, and God bringing exposure to what He's been doing in Love Life, and prayerfully the hearts of the men and women that will be in attendance will start to be stirred. And then in the following week, I've been asked to come and share a little bit about the history of abortion in New York and my testimony at Georgetown University at the Life and Dignity Conference. And so it's like 4 times I'm going to Washington, D.C. And I'm like, Lord, what are you doing? What are you doing? I know I'm called to New York. I know for sure I'm still called to be here, but it's beyond me. It's about the bigger picture and what He's up to in Washington, D.C. And so I'm super excited, Justin and Daniel, to see what God will do in the days to come from these opportunities.
Amazing, Lisa. We're very grateful for those doors that have opened, and we believe that God has raised you up for such a time as this. You know, I just sitting here listening to everything you're saying and reflecting about New York City. You know, most people know this, but maybe not everybody. You know, Planned Parenthood was started there in New York City by Margaret Sanger. And we have a whole special on this. Maybe we can link to that about Margaret Sanger's story. But she met with some leaders at the Plaza Hotel in New York City a little over 100 years ago to cast her vision for death. And that began to get rolled out over the years. And really, she was used to bring forth that culture of death. And I believe, Lisa, I really do, again, just sitting here listening to you speak and thinking about the significance of New York City and what has taken place there. God is using you in a way to bring about a culture of life in New York City, to raise a righteous standard. And the prayers and the pastors and the volunteers that you've rallied together, it's not unnoticed, and God is using it. And, you know, I think about us even launching D.C. this year, how God has used you to pray at these events in D.C. I believe it's all part of it. It's all part of, you know, the seeds that have been sown in prayer and the labor that you have sown there in New York City. God is using all of it. Very, very excited for the future, just like you talked about. And I want to get back up to New York City very soon.
Yes, we want to have you, Justin. People ask for you. We missed you here. We know that, you know, I tell him he has an expanding family, and God is just, he has you behind the scenes more, pouring into us. But we love you here. People still ask about you, and I always give, you know, your regards.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I love the people in New York City, and I really do. It's a very, very special place in my heart. So I look forward to getting back up there very soon and seeing all those pastors and the volunteers. Lisa, this has been such a joy, such a privilege to hear your story and just reflect on what God is doing there in New York City. Still a lot of work to be done, and so we invite those who are listening to partner with Lisa. Partner with
Please.
her through prayer, through financial giving. If you're in the area, sign up to volunteer. We need people on the sidewalks that are offering the hope of the gospel and the help of the local church at these mission fields all across New York City, all across all 5 boroughs. We would love to help train you and equip you to do that, or to be a mentor for a mom or dad. If you know a pastor in the area, connect us to the pastor. We would love for Lisa to meet with them and give them a chance to partner their church with Love Life and the vision of Love Life. But Lisa, thank you for encouraging the church with your story, with your testimony, inspiring us. And I pray that those that are listening will be encouraged to say yes to the Lord in whatever he's calling you to step out into.
Amen. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys that are listening. We hope that this podcast was a blessing to you all. You can reach out to Lisa. Actually, you can go on our website, lovelife.org/locations. You can scroll down and you can see New York and an email address. You can reach out to her, lisa@lovelife.org. If you're in the area and you want to get connected with Love Life there. You can also reach out to us nationally, info@lovelife.org. Of course, check out our website, lovelife.org. Pretty easy to find. And let us know if you reach out through email or however you want to reach out, maybe even on social media. Let us know if these episodes are a blessing to you, if there's some suggestions you could have for other episodes for us to do. We would definitely love to have other guests. We've had some amazing guests like Lisa on, and we want to keep having those folks on to share their story. But thank you guys all for listening. Thank you again, Lisa, for joining us. Justin, thanks, man.
Yeah. Hey, before you say go, I want to share one more story real quick about New York City. I think testimonies are so powerful, and these just come to my mind, and I want to share it with you guys to encourage you. As the church is out in front of these places of death, these strongholds in our city, again, we have gotten to see miracle after miracle take place. I'm going to share one with you. There was a Satanist that was out there in front of the abortion clinic. I don't know if you remember this, Lisa, or not. I remember. Can't remember the guy's name who used to minister out there, but a Satanist, we have it on video, I've seen it, that was out there in front of the abortion clinic that heard the gospel and in front of the largest Planned Parenthood in New York City gave his heart to Christ.
Praise God.
And not only that, but I think about the story when we were out there prayer walking and the guy driving the truck, driving through the street. He just drives past the prayer walk, and while he's driving this big box truck, he gets hit with the presence of God. Yeah. And he has to pull his car over because he starts weeping, and he's experiencing the presence of God like he hadn't experienced before. And we got this on video, this whole moment where this guy is describing what he's feeling as he just drove through an area of Christians that were out there praying, and how he experienced God in front of an abortion clinic in ways like he's never even experienced inside of a church building. I encourage you with these stories to tell you we have to take what we have and get it out into the streets. Yeah. We are called to be the light, and we can't put a shade over that light. And this is what happens when you get the light out into the public, out into the darkness. God does amazing things. So be encouraged by this, and encourage you guys to step out in faith.
Yes. Amen. Yes.
Amen.
And thank you guys for listening. God bless.
See you guys.